hesitate to inflict pain.
Make this worth my time. On to the next fight.
That stretches the sanity of the mind.
Hello and welcome, Exiles, to my permanent Berserk Inquisitor. Now this is building around what has to be probably my new favorite item of the game, which is Calm Spirit. This item allows you to get some really good rage regen, and Berserk, it's a fun buff. Moving 30 to 40% more speed is very nice, not to mention the attack, the damage, and the damage mitigation that comes with it. Very feels good buff. Now, what is the unique interaction we're using here? It's combining these gloves with the Inquisitor Ascendancy Pious Path. The idea is pretty simple. I'm going to make a character that can stack a bunch of life, use an ivory tower, which will then make that life also give us a bunch of ES if it's reserved. The Pious Path will give us a bunch of regen from all that stacked life we have and base percent regen we have from the tree and our Ascendancy. And then what happens is that life regen becomes rage regen, and we still get ES regen based on what that life regen was before it got turned into rage regen. This means we get both sustain on our ES pool, and we get a hell of a lot of rage regen. This is the result. We have a Berserk that lasts a very long time. You can see, even when we entered the zone at the start of that Minotaur map, I believe, we started at 0 rage, we clicked Berserk instantly, and it still went all the way up to 60 and lasted quite a while until it depleted because of how much rage per second we get. The unique build I wanted to go for here was specifically Energy Blade, because I'm already stacking into life. I wanted to stack into a decent ES pool with Ivory Tower and use Energy Blade for an actual attack-based build. Energy Blade is far and away a very good build if you're just going for a cast on crit battlemage setup, but I wanted to do something different. I wanted to use Energy Blade for an actual weapon and an actual attack skill. I ended up settling on Reeve. I tried a decent amount of attack skills. Reeve probably felt the most well-rounded out of all the non-meta options I tried. Clearly, if I did Spectral Helix, I did test it at one point. It did much more damage. If I did Lightning Strike, I didn't test that one. I would assume it would probably also be better than Reeve. But Reeve was a nice, I'm not playing a meta skill, but it still seemed pretty solid thanks to the bit of a damage buff it received this patch. Other than this unique interaction, it is ending up being a tree that... I don't know exactly what the meta way to build an Energy Blade tree is. I just kind of threw this thing together. It was okay. It was decent. I'm not sure if this is really the best way to do this. There's probably a lot better ways where you can get a lot more ES and then maybe the build scales a lot better. I don't know. This is just the way I went with it, which was to do a decent amount of weird pathing to enable split personalities with the Trader Keystone enabling Ivory Tower via Coruscating Elixir. This is one of my classic favorite things to do. I love the Trader Keystone. I'm a little bit addicted to it. I cannot deny those accusations, but it definitely leads to very strong builds when you're able to use this Keystone because it solves your res for free. It makes flasks be things you don't really have to press or think about. You just start them at the beginning of maps and they just use them for the rest of the map and it works out. Ultimately, I also wanted to build around, since I was scaling life, I figured, you know what, I want to scale into Wrathpith Globe. I'm addicted to that item too. This item says sacrifice 10% life when you use a spell skill, which won't kill you, it'll just take you to 1 life, and we have a little bit of leech from Feed the Fury, which enables us to cast skills like Blood Rage. Originally when I was playing this character, I was trying to do Rage Vortex. I didn't realize my original plan was to do just a Rage Vortex build. I didn't realize that skill had specifically a life cost, which meant the sacrifice 10% life here made it very inconsistent to try to use that while mapping. So if I was going to go back and try to redo it, I would probably do a build that didn't scale around Wrath Pith, and that way Rage Vortex would still be consistent if I just had some leech to sustain it, more or less would be the idea. Ultimately, this was also the sort of the downfall of this character was scaling into the spell damage because of one simple thing here. Battlemage's Cry was how we were going to benefit from this spell damage. It was going to enable us to convert the percent spell damage we were getting to attack damage to scale our basically energy blade damage. The issue with this is, with increased duration, it lasts 10 seconds. It has, however, an 8-second cooldown. And often I would go into a boss fight and I would misclick it before the boss spawned, or I would mess something up with timing it where I wouldn't proc it to get the actual power generation, and it would result in me having no scaling from my spell damage. And it was a very feels bad moment. Whenever I did that misclick, I would have to wait 8 seconds before my character would actually be dealing the damage it's supposed to deal. I think I deal like maybe a third of the damage or something when I forget to press it on the correct timing. Micromanaging in maps is a real pain. Ultimately, this is the core reason why I think this build kind of falls apart for me, where I want it to be good. I think it can be good. We end up with a decent amount of DPS when I actually have this online, but it's an issue of it feels too bad to play. To have to press this every 8 seconds or every 10 seconds to be dealing the actual damage the build's supposed to deal, it just feels bad. I wish I could say it didn't just feel bad, but it just does. And this is why this is a character I'm not going to end up recommending. I think the building blocks for this character, they kind of work. I would imagine if there was a better, more optimized tree, it would be even better. But I was so beaten up from the regular misuse and timing of this specific war cry that it made me not really want to try to re-optimize the tree past the generic thought and initial setup I'd put on the character. Of course, there's going to be a POV down below. The character does deal some decent damage. It has okay defenses with some decent regen. Not overpowered, somewhere in the middle tier, above a glass cannon, below a uber tank sort of situation. But ultimately, the character was just too awkward because of Battlemage's Cry. You could use basically any attack skill you want that could use a sword, and it could do most of the content. I think it falls short on probably some of the Ubers. I think at this point the character can probably consistently do a lot of the Ubers if you play the fights well. If you don't play the fight well, it's not happening sort of situation. Not overpowered enough DPS to do it cleanly, but enough DPS to do it sort of situation is what you're looking at here. So that's my hot take on this character. Obviously, I clearly have an addiction to Wrath Pith. Glimpse of Chaos is always been one of my favorite items to build around, and Call of Spirit is a beautiful synergy with these sorts of items. I promise next build I won't be using these items. I'll be trying out some different stuff, but this is just something I wanted to try because I've never made an energy blade build, and this is my first attempt at trying to make it where it's actually just using the energy blade for what it's meant to be used for, which is a lightsaber you're slashing your enemies with, so to speak. So that was the character. That was the attempt at making a decent energy blade build. I think it did okay, but ultimately it's not a build I'm recommending. It's just solely based on the awkwardness and the annoyingness of having to remember to press this button. That alone killed the enjoyment I could have of the character. So I'm not going to go into extra details about it. You can basically dissect the POB if you'd like to know more about the character, but this is where I'm drawing the line on it. Battlemage's Cry is too unfun to play, and I'm going to go on to my next build. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Maybe this will spark some ideas to make cool builds. I don't know. As always, I hope you enjoyed Exiles. Take care.